Derek Jeter was a leading man who happened to play baseball. He was Cary Grant in pinstripes, set to play his part on the biggest stage in the major leagues since he'd gotten drafted 6th overall by his favorite childhood team, and play his part he did, as one of the greatest hitting shortstops in MLB history. Today, he's 6th all-time with 3,465 hits, and his .310 batting average currently ranks in the top 100 at 88. His career WAR of 71.3 is 10th best ever among shortstops. He won 5 Silver Sluggers. Though he never won an MVP or batting title, he did have the game's best WAR in 1999 at 8.0, arguably an even more impressive feat given his beefy, roided-out competition of the era. But numbers don't really capture the true majesty of Jeter's greatness. There will never be another Derek Jeter for many reasons, but mostly because what Jeter possessed in abundance is a quality that has no numeric value. Derek Jeter was the epitome of clutch, racking up countless moments where he came through in the biggest spots imaginable, moments that will live on as long as baseball continues to exist. Spending his entire career in the Big Apple, where the spotlight can be blinding, Jeter, for 20 years, managed to embody all of the values we want to instill in future generations, and despite the fame and fortune, managed to maintain a poise and professionalism while carrying himself with a grace that made it very difficult to dislike him as a person. Jeter never tarnished his reputation or our memories of his greatness. Was his last season one of his worst? Yeah, but he still had 256. Sure, his OPS plus was 76, meaning he was about 25% below an average MLB player, but the year before he'd broken his ankle. Was that going to be our last memory of him, writhing in pain? No way. Derek Jeter deserved one last year as the captain, even if it was as a diminished one. Baseball is a sport with few living legends, and rightly so. The game grinds players into sawdust, yet Derek Jeter managed to rise above and occupy rarefied air, the likes of which will rarely ever come again. Will Bobby Witt Jr. play 20 years in KC? Will Gunnar Henderson play 20 years in Baltimore? Will either one of them become part of the American zeitgeist? A cultural touchstone that can be bigger than sports itself? It's unlikely. Baseball needed a hero following one of the darkest moments in our country's history in 2001. Derek Jeter was that guy. And for over a decade after that, he was so much more. But before all of that, he was a scrawny kid from Kalamazoo who just wanted to get picked by his favorite team. Before we dive deeper into Derek Jeter's legendary career, I want to tell you about something else that's pretty cool. Today's sponsor, Mova Globes. Their independently rotating globes are the perfect complement to any coffee table or desk side because they literally don't require any technology to rotate. They literally only require light to work because of some really interesting solar cell and magnetic technology. Watch this, you can even do this kind of thing with it. Just to prove that it's not rotating or anything like that. And you can even tell based on my setup in here that I don't have the most ambient light available, and yet it's still spinning. On top of that, they have designs for all 30 MLB teams, including a couple commemorative ones. There's also over 40 other designs, including world maps and celestial bodies by JPL and NASA. And today, if you use my discount code MTC10, you can get 10% off a 6 or 8.5 inch globe. It not only is a nice little discount, but it's a great way to show your support for the channel if you're able. Again, that's MTC10 for 10% off a 6 or 8.5 inch globe. Any 6 or 8.5 inch globe. Now, back to our video. Draft day 1992. The little kid who'd grown up a Yankees fan because he spent his summers with his maternal grandparents in New Jersey had gotten selected 6th overall by that fabled organization. It was a fairy tale come true for young Derek. For the teams that had passed on the first high schooler taken, it was a nightmare. The Astros had the first pick, and one of their scouts was Hall of Fame pitcher Hal Newhouser, who'd seen Jeter play repeatedly and was convinced the kid would log 20 years in the big leagues. When the Astros took Phil Nevin instead, Newhouser quit the organization entirely. Paul Shuey, Billy Wallace, Jeffrey Hammonds, all taken ahead of Jeter. Then the Reds were up. They apparently wanted to take Derek, but ended up settling for the more established Chad Mottola, who was considered a more polished hitter coming out of UCF. Jeter had literally fell into the Yankees' lap. He signed for $800,000 and was off to play for his dream team. He then reported to Tampa and played in the Florida Gulf Coast League, where he promptly went 0 for 14 with a lot of E6s mixed in. He ended up hitting just .202 with 10 doubles and 3 homers in 47 games. Then he got bumped up to A-ball for 11 contests, where he joined 2 teammates who would be with him for 5 rings, Andy Pettitte and Jorge Posada. The next season, Jeter committed 56 errors, still a record for the South Atlantic League, but he also hit .295. Jeter later wrote, "I was the king of robbing a player of a potential hit and then whipping it past first so the hitter wound up on second." His detractors would point to his defense for years to come following, but that bat was showing enough potential to keep the Yankees satisfied with his development. There was talks of moving him to center field if he couldn't iron out some of his fielding issues, but he managed to improve enough towards the end of the season to keep himself rooted up the middle for a little while longer. After crushing the minors in 1994, moving up 3 levels in the process while hitting .344 along the way, he got called up to the bigs in 1995 after a string of injuries decimated the Yankees' current infield. He started a couple games, went back down, then back up, then down again. He wouldn't play enough to make their postseason roster, the first Yankee appearance in the playoffs since 1981. Overall, Jeter had hit .250 in 15 games with 2 fielding errors, but the next season would bring with it the baseball world's first real introduction to who would eventually become the captain. But it wouldn't be immediate. As the 1996 season dawned, Jeter's place in the team was uncertain. His limited showing hadn't blown many away, and there was talk of bringing in a stopgap vet to let Jeter mature in the minors a bit longer. But there was also a new manager in town, Joe Torre, and he ended up liking Jeter's performance enough in spring that he named him the opening day starter up the middle. It proved to be a wise move. All Jeter did was win the Rookie of the Year by slashing .314, .370, .430 with 41 extra base hits, 14 steals, and 104 runs scored, helping the Yankees to their first AL East title since 1980. His flair for the dramatic was immediately apparent. His first walk-off hit came against the hated Red Sox on September 21st, and then, during the ALDS, he posted a .412 average as the Yankees advanced to the ALCS against the O's. And the legend of Jeter just kept growing, but he would need some help from a 12-year-old kid. In Game 1, the Yankees trailed 4-3 heading into the bottom of the 8th. Jeter had to face flamethrower Armando Benitez. Jeter, using the inside-out swing he perfected as a kid playing wiffle ball, tried to take advantage of the short porch and right on a four-seamer away. Tony Tarasco went back, ready to make the catch at the wall, just a couple feet shy of a home run, but it was then that a baby-faced Jeffrey Meyer reached from the bleachers and the ball bounced off his glove and over the fence. Home run, the umpires ruled. No replay. It was now a tie game, which the Yankees, of course, went on to win. It was admittedly an egregious call looking back, but still one that sent Jeter hurtling towards Yankee immortality. New York would go on to take care of the O's, then came back down 2-0 to win the World Series against a formidable Braves team that featured one of the best starting rotations of all time. Jeter had hit .361 for the postseason as a whole, turning up huge time and time again, and it certainly wouldn't be the last time he did so. Before the 1997 season, Jeter turned down a contract worth $450,000 because he'd wanted $550,000. The Yankees threatened to renew him at $150,000, and thus began arguably Jeter's worst season at the plate between 1996 and 2009, where he would slash just .291, .370, .405, good for an OPS plus of just .103. This essentially had him ranked about average for an MLB hitter. The Yankees slumped as well, getting bounced by the Indians in the ALDS a year after winning it all. Jeter probably wanted to prove that his slight sophomore slump was a fluke, coming out in 1998 with a renewed purpose to go along with his already accelerating development. The Yankees surged to 114-48, the best mark in franchise history, and Jeter finished third in the AL MVP voting, hitting .324 with 19 dingers, 30 steals, and 203 hits. But it wasn't just on the field that a young Derek was leading. Said pitcher Derek Cohn, "We had a relentless nature where nobody gave away an at-bat, no matter what the score was," and that's who Derek was. He was also dating superstar singer Mariah Carey, which kept him in the tabloids, but he remained focused through it all. The consummate professional, whose BFF at the time was another MVP candidate in Alex Rodriguez, who would stay with Jeter when in Manhattan. This friendship wouldn't go on to age all that well, see my video on their brutal rivalry for more on that, but for the time being, it certainly contributed to his stature in the baseball world. The Yankees went on to sweep the Padres in the World Series that year, with Jeter hitting .353. Again, he'd proved himself to be at his best when he was most needed. It would be more of the same the next season, with the Yankees sweeping the Braves in the 1999 World Series. This capped off what was probably Derek's best season ever, with that aforementioned MLB leading 8.0 WAR and 219 hits, to go along with a career best OPS plus of 153 and 349 batting average. The good times kept rolling in 2000 for Derek. He started at short in the All-Star game for the first time and was the game's MVP, then proceeded to finish the year with a 339 average, 201 hits, 22 steals, and an 896 OPS. The Yankees stormed to the playoffs again, dispatching the Mariners and A-Rod, though both star shortstops hit 2 homers and drove in 5 during the ALCS. After beating the Mets in the only World Series ever between the two teams, the Yankees had successfully three-peated, cementing their run as one of the most dominant in MLB history, rivaling even the 1950s Yankee squads who seemingly won every season. Jeter more than did his part, batting .318 in the Fall Classic with 2 homers and 1,055 OPS. Jeter had won MVP of the World Series and the All-Star game in the same season. It was the first time in MLB history that a player had ever earned that combo, but his career postseason heroics were far from over. 2001 was an emotional shock to the country, as Jeter's adopted hometown of New York was attacked by terrorists on 9/11. To make matters worse, Derek's sister Charlie was stricken with Hodgkin's disease and was undergoing chemotherapy as well. This backdrop of turmoil only made what Jeter did in the field even more poignant, especially his postseason heroics. During the regular season, Jeter had continued to sit comfortably in his prime, joining the 2020 club for the first time with 21 homers and 27 stolen bases, to go along with a tidy .311 batting average, 124 OPS plus, and 5.2 WAR. As had become routine, the Yankees again won the AL East and went to the postseason hunting their 4th straight crown, making Oakland their next inevitable victim. But Jason Giambi and the A's had other plans. They made serious noise in NYC by taking the first 2 games of the ALCS, and then, back in Oakland for Game 3, the Bombers had a 1-0 lead that felt anything but safe in the thick of the steroid era. In the 7th, the A's were set to tie it up. Jeremy Giambi was on first when Terrence Long laced a double to right. Then the throw into the infield was way offline. The Yankees would have to find a way to pull ahead in a tie contest. Right? Jeter said, not so fast. He was backing up a play in a manner that maybe 1 in 100 shortstops would have, racing all the way across the diamond to collect the errant toss and flip the ball to catcher Jorge Posada to nab a still upright Giambi by an eyelash. It was one of the most iconic defensive plays of his career, right up there with his jump throws and dives into the stands. The Yankees went on to win 3 in a row and return to the World Series. But on his last trip to Oakland before he retired, the A's showed a video tribute of Jeter, and quite amusingly, the flip wasn't included. As Johnny Damon said, he was always in the right place at the right time and made an incredible play for the ages, one that took the wind completely out of our sails. That year's World Series would be unlike any the Yankees had played, as they faced resiliency incarnate in the form of the recently added expansion franchise, Arizona Diamondbacks, who employed 2 of the best pitchers ever in Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling. The series would go 7, with the D-backs eventually rallying in one of the most iconic final moments in series history, but it was also during that series that Jeter earned his iconic nickname of Mr. November, as he hit a walk-off homer in Game 4 just as the calendar flipped to November 1st. The game had actually started on October 31st, but had gone to extras. No World Series game had ever been played in November before, so it served as a hell of an introduction to that month's play. Sadly for him and his squad, that was really his only production of the series, as he batted .148 over the 7 total games. Little did anyone know that the Bronx Bombers' era of dominance was close to over, but Jeter himself was just getting started. Between 2001 and 2008, the Yankees won exactly 0 World Championships. Along the way, however, Derek was still Derek, hosting Saturday Night Live, appearing in Hollywood movies, dating Hollywood starlets, and above all else, producing at the plate. His lowest average over this span was .292, and aside from an injury-shortened 2003, his lowest hit total was a robust .179. The postseason heartbreaks for Yankees fans, however, came in bunches. In 2002, the Yankees got bounced by the Angels in the ALDS, though Jeter himself hit .500 with 2 homers. In 2003, the Yankees got to break the hearts of Red Sox fans again, with an Aaron Boone walk-off in the extra innings of Game 7. But then, Josh Beckett and the Marlins, down 2-1, won 3 straight to take the World Series, finishing them off at Yankee Stadium no less. Something had to be done, right? And something was. The Yankees traded for A-Rod in the offseason, and all of a sudden the bromance that had soured since small bickerments over the spotlight had separated the pair in the early 2000s became daily fodder for tabloid gossip. Jeter wasn't one to bask in the controversy. He was a boring interview, and he kept his personal life as private as he could. But with Alex's hefty contract and perhaps even weightier ego, Jeter found himself sucked into the media storm all too often. Even with arguably the American League greatest player being added, the Yankees still couldn't seem to punctuate successful years with championships. They suffered the infamy of the 2004 ALCS, becoming the first and only MLB team so far in baseball history to blow a 3-0 lead. And they did it to the hated Red Sox, no less, who would go on to end their 86-year slump following, then take the 2007 World Series as well. This made it, since 2001, 2-0 Bo Sox in terms of championships. Not a great feeling for those in the Big Apple, who were very much used to winning over them. Perhaps the apex of the Yankees' struggles was 2008, when they didn't make the postseason at all, and had to watch their upstart AL East competitor Tampa Bay Rays clinch the pennant. Many fans were convinced that the reason the Yankees kept getting bounced out of the playoffs was because of clubhouse toxicity, with one of the chief examples being how their 2 superstar infielders were too busy catfighting the dugout to stay locked in when it mattered most. Perhaps the most famous on-field example of their tension was the drop ball of 2006, when A-Rod and Jeter collided in the infield on a pop-up that then dribbled into left field as the 2 superstars stood there, staring each other down. There was one iconic highlight during this time that would live on in the legacy of Derek because of just how gritty it showed he could be. In the 12th inning of a 2004 regular season hate match, with runners on first and second, Trot Nixon hit a bloop down the left field line that seemed like it was definitely going to drop fair and give the Red Sox the lead. Jeter went tearing after the ball, somehow managing to run it down in fair territory, and then went diving headfirst into the stands, emerging afterwards with a couple battle marks and the ball. The Yankees went on to win the game. The flip meet the dive. Jeter couldn't have been happy with much of the previous decade, and in 2009, he took his revenge on the baseball world at large. At age 35, he slashed .334, .406, .465 with 30 steals, 212 hits, and a glittering 6.6 WAR total, the 3rd highest total of his entire career. Only Honus Wagner has ever hit for a higher average as a shortstop over the age of 35. One reason Jeter had returned to the top was the renewed effort he had put into his own physical conditioning. In 2007, he began working with a personal trainer, getting up at 5:30 a.m. every day to train. Before, he didn't do anything in November or December, but as he aged, he realized the importance of keeping his body in tip-top shape year-round. And it certainly started paying off quickly. In the 2009 World Series, Jeter hit .407, and the Yankees dispatched the powerful Phillies in 6. Once the offseason began, the accolades absolutely rolled in. He won his 4th Gold Glove, his 4th Silver Slugger, and the Roberto Clemente Award for his humanitarian work. And for all the inevitable comments regarding this Gold Glove, keep in mind this season he actually posted a career-high 1.1 D-WAR, making it perhaps the only season he may have actually deserved the award. During the campaign, he'd also passed Lou Gehrig for most hits as a Yankee, then passed Luis Aparicio for most hits as a shortstop in Major League history. He'd even been captain of Team USA during the World Baseball Classic, and afterwards, Commissioner Bud Selig had written him a letter. "You've represented the sport magnificently throughout your Hall of Fame career. On and off the field, you're a man of great integrity, and you have my admiration." Even A's GM Billy Beane couldn't root against Jeter. Because of Jeter, the Yankees know how to win. It's not an act. The Yankees' brand name in this era is that it's Jeter's era. It's similar to what DiMaggio was in his time. This is probably the closest spiritual comp to Jeter, Joe DiMaggio, who still lives large in the psyche of American culture to this very day. By 2011, Jeter was back to hunting baseball immortality, closing in on the fabled 3,000 hit mark, a club with just 33 members out of more than 20,000 men who've played Major League Baseball. By mid-June, Jeter reached 2,994 hits, but then injured his calf chasing down a fly ball. He would miss the next 18 games, delaying baseball history for nearly a month. This is Derek Jeter we're talking about. He was always going to get his iconic hit in an epic way, right? And upon returning on July 9th in Yankee Stadium against the Tampa Bay Rays, Jeter started the game just 2 hits shy of the hallowed mark. Why not go 5 for 5? Even more than that, Jeter's 3,000th hit was a home run to tie the game against Tampa ace David Price, then one of the best in the game. And, just like that, Jeter became the first Yankee ever to join the 3,000th hit club. In 2012, Jeter had a resurgent campaign following a couple for his standard subpar years, leading the majors with 216 hits while slashing .316, .362, .429, helping lead the Yankees into the postseason for the 17th time out of the 18 years he played so far. The Bombers seemed ready to claim another title. They emerged victoriously versus the pesky Orioles in 5 games in the ALDS, with Jeter batting .364 along the way. Next up was the ALCS, and the MVP-winning Miguel Cabrera led Tigers. The Yankees got down 4-0 in Game 1, but managed to tie it in the 9th, sending the game to extra innings. As it would end up, they probably would have been better off losing after 9, because in the 12th, while trying to field a grounder, Jeter broke his ankle. He screamed in pain, rolling on the infield dirt, before having to be helped off the field. The Yankees would go on to get swept. And, unfortunately, he was never quite the same player again. He missed most of 2013 as he recovered from the traumatic injury, playing in just 17 games in the process. Then, in 2014, when he was set to turn 40, while still playing a position that's the most athletically demanding on the field, he decided that it was nearing time to go and announced the campaign as his last dance. He appeared in that year's Midsummer Classic for the final time, lacing a double, and with every stop he made on the road, the opposing team gave him a special gift as a send-off. But it was Derek himself who probably saved the best for last for his beloved Yankee fans. It was September 25th in a game against the O's, tied at 5 in the bottom of the 9th with 2 runners on. This was Jeter's final home game. In his first debut in the Bronx in 1995, Jerry Seinfeld had impersonated Bob Shepard, as Jeter was announced coming to the plate. Unfortunately, Bob Shepard had died in 2010, but he'd recorded his Jeter intros, and thus, from the grave, the immortal PA announcer gave the final, now batting for the Yankees, number 2, Derek Jeter. Everyone and their mother seemed to know what was coming next, and the captain didn't disappoint. He used that iconic inside-out swing to lace a single to right field, giving the Yankees a walk-off win, and Jeter one of the most iconic final at-bats in baseball history. Curt Schilling probably summed up best what many players felt about Derek. I know competing against the guy, for the decade or so we matched up, was what made the major leagues for someone like me. Derek Jeter defined what it meant to be a big leaguer, not just as a player, but as a person. One reason that Jeter and A-Rod had beef was because A-Rod big-timed the low-level staffers who worked for the Yankees, which in Jeter's mind was taboo and something he himself would never consider doing. This seemed true of all of his professional relationships. The Yankee organization loved Derek and his presence with the team, always exuding professionalism and kindness to everyone involved. This is the legacy of Derek Jeter as much as his 3,465 hits, .310 batting average, 71.3 B-WAR, 544 doubles, and 200 club occupancy. This and his reputation as one of the greatest playoff performers of all time, with 5 World Series rings, a .302 career postseason average, and postseason record 200 hits, 111 runs scored, 32 doubles, and 302 total bases. All of this and so much more than we could ever hope to include in one video is why we here at MTC believe there will never be another Derek Jeter. Now, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, consider liking and subscribing and checking out this playlist for more essay content just like this. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.